Hey, welcome back to Basically EMS, everybody. Chris and Wade, as
Hello.
always. Got to make sure to introduce my man Wade over here.
Yeah.
So I don't hear about it later.
Yeah.
It's like a
Because you will.
yeah. It's like a spousal relationship
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I don't compliment how pretty you look today, you're gonna tell me about it.
You did say my dress made me look fat, so.
Well, pH fat.
Oh,
Cool
stupid
one,
fat.
the cool kind. So over on the Summit Healthcare Education YouTube channel, we got a comment asking about for prospective EMT students, kind of what they could expect going into EMT school. And so we're going to talk about that today, as well as maybe some strategies for students who are in EMT school to help them to be successful. So for those that don't know, we're both paramedics and EMS instructors. I've been an EMS instructor for, I think, about 8 years now, and year 2 or 3 years.
Going on 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we're going to talk more about our personal experience as EMT instructors with the program that we work for. I've worked for a couple different ones, but they've been more or less the same thing. So maybe a little bit different programs, how the days work and the length of programs, those kind of things might be different at different programs. But I think generally we can kind of give some good information on it.
Yeah. I mean, because I obviously did not go to the school we work at when I took my EMT. Still had the same teacher, though. What's up? But yeah, I mean, they're all fairly similar. I think the big takeaways is going to be stuff that I wish I would have known, I think, going into it. I had a very specific purpose when I was getting into EMT, because I was trying to actually at the time go to med school. So I kind of had a different drive, but understanding what it is now, and if I was to go back and do it again, I would 100% do it again. It's just maybe a different mindset going in.
So yeah, just jump into it. Like what do you mean by that? Like what different mindset? What would you want to expect?
So, when I was prepping for more school and more school and more school. So I was kind of in that grind mode of like, it doesn't matter what they throw at me. I'm just going to figure it out and then we'll go. Right. And it was one of those, I didn't really have an overarching plan for immediate use of it, even though that's kind of what I needed. I just knew I wanted to go to paramedic school because I wanted paramedicine on my med school application. And so, going back into it, if I was to change my perspective and know, I was going to just stay at that paramedic level, I wasn't going to continue on with med school, I think I would have paid a little bit more attention to certain topics, like shock in particular. When I was in EMT basic, I remember feeling like, it's pretty generalized, I'll figure it out, and that's not the case, especially when I then worked and saw shock and was like, I needed to pay more attention with some things, Medic school definitely opened my eyes to a lot of it. And I just didn't feel unprepared, but it was one of those things that in medic school, even I was like, everyone seems to know this answer. And I'm like the only one, I'm just not going to talk, That was a big one for me. And then also just like the engagement with my classmates, because realistically, a lot of my classmates from EMT school didn't continue on. A few did, but not the majority, And I think that had I spent time with some of these other people, maybe I could have worked alongside some of them, And there's one guy in particular I was good friends with through the school when I was in EMT class. And, I think he's actually a police officer now. But he was somebody that I thought for sure we would end up being kind of in the same field, same drive, similar people. So I don't know, maybe spending more time studying with my cohort also would have done me some good from like a social perspective. I also was very assumptive of this class because it was a low-level certification in my head. So I'm like, that's going to be easy. I just got to go and check the boxes, and here we are. And then it turned out to be much harder than I thought. And that NREMT fail the first time really stings, and when you're broke, that's expensive the second time around too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one thing I would say. If you're a prospective EMT student, realize, if you haven't seen the book yet, it's like 1,600 pages or something, right? And of course, it's a textbook, so there's some density that doesn't necessarily need to be there. But we are kind of a jack of all trades, master of none a little bit in medicine, and that we need to know a little bit about everything and just be really good at what's going to kill people. But it is a specialty, but it's a really broad specialty. And so it is a lot that you're going to have to learn, especially if you have no background in medicine or A&P, anything like that coming into it.
Right.
You're not going to have to know all the names of all the bones in the body, but you're still going to have to understand body systems very well and how they interact and those kind of things. So, you need to, when you come into it, you need to expect, like, you need to put your time in. This is not like you're saying just a low level cert class checkbox. And if you're a good student, you can get through it.
Yeah.
And
it's not insurmountable.
No, for sure. But if you want to go do this as your job and be good at it, like you need to come in and you need to give it the love and attention that the class will need to be really successful at it, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I failed my first one is because I 100% viewed this class as in class, I'm paying attention, I'm doing well in class. I can this is going to be fine, you know? And it wasn't until I actually was talking to a firefighter buddy of mine, a retired firefighter. And he's like, no, you got to view that class like it's almost like a 4-credit college class. Like you need 4 hours outside of class studying just to stay on top of things and I also, if I could go back and do it again, I would have spent more time. I hate textbooks. I hated textbooks, but finding more resources like audiobooks or some sort of lecture online where I could go into class prepared. And then now as the instructor, I see both sides of it, right? Like it's frustrating when you have students who seem really, really on top of things. And then it's just me talking at them for 4 hours instead of having a discussion when it's like, you're the one I thought we were going to be, come in red and then we could just talk about it instead of me. Okay, you guys don't know what we're talking about. Okay, well, let's deep dive. And then time goes. And so it's a different perspective on it now, but I wish I would have if I could go back, I would. And that's most school for me. I probably would have prepped better.
Yeah. And I would say that's another expectation you should have coming into it is like, you're not going to be taught everything during class hours. That's just not possible. Cause it is, and you'll see in the EMS community, a lot of back and forth about, levels of education and all this and whatever. And, the EMT level is a 4-month class, 8 hours a week for 4 months. And, you're not going to, the level of knowledge you need to have to be really competent is way beyond that. And so you're not going to be able, you can't expect to come into an EMT class and just be like, oh, my teacher's going to show me everything. Or if you're in an online class, be like, oh, I'm just going to look at all the lecture videos to simulate being in an in-person class. And I'm going to walk away with all the knowledge because we're going to highlight the important things and we're there to help make connections as your instructor, but you still need to go and search that knowledge yourself. And that's just what EMT school is. And if you go further on to like paramedic school, it's that times 10, right? Like it's even more so you're going to have to be self-motivated for it.
Right. And another thing too is that most instructors, we all have our bias of one thing or another, right? Like what's burned us in the past and what we prioritize a little bit. And, it's kind of, I don't want to say a disservice because we all have been burned from service, one way or the other, like, on the rig. That's what we emphasize. And so there's more than one way to skin that cat, right? Like there's so many techniques that we can show you. And for every technique that's gold standard with like example being sling and swath, there's 3 other ways you could do that almost more effectively, but there's the gold standard, right? And so spending the time outside of what's just taught and actually doing your own research, be like, oh, I like this better. Because we all do things uniquely, right? It's like charting. None of us chart the exact same. We take things we like and leave what we don't. And I feel like that's one thing that, understand in your EMT class, they're limited on time. So there's only so much we can show you, like Chris was saying. So go out of your way. If you're curious, if you like a topic, well, what's another way we could do this? Because this field, if you don't know, is a lot of MacGyver and stuff in the moment, And so having that I've got 3 options. Option 1 makes the most sense. Like giving yourself choices makes it way easier just down the road.
Yeah, for sure. It's important to remember. And so if you don't know anything about this and you're just listening to this because you're interested in maybe becoming an EMT down the line. So the process essentially, like the bare bones of how the process works is you go through an EMT course, and after your EMT course, you take your national registry certification exams. And so that's broken down into 2 parts: psychomotor, which is skills based, and then the cognitive, which is knowledge based. Depending on where you're at here, we're in Idaho. So the psychomotor is done during your class. That's not always the case everywhere, but that's how it's done in Idaho. And I think most places at this point. And the cognitive, the knowledge test is done through a testing center. And so you need to finish your national registry before you can start applying for jobs. And depending on the state, like here in Idaho or Washington, you need to have a job before you can get your state license. You need to be licensed to practice in the field. So a little bit of background for how that process all works. All to come around and say the purpose of the class, and you need to have this understanding going into the class, is to get you to pass the national registry. That is the point of your EMT class. And there may be some old crusty paramedics hearing this who are throwing their phones through the window because they're mad at me saying this, but that's the reality. Is our purpose as EMT instructors isn't necessarily to teach you to be a great EMT and work in the field. It is to get you so you can get a job and go learn to be a great EMT. And so you need to understand that if you're coming into this as a student, that is our purpose, is to get you to across that goal line, not the finish line. The finish line is jobs down the line, right? We have this goal we need to get you across, and that is to get you certified so you can start to work. So just like Wade was saying, we're going to, you're going to see in the class, you're going to see golden standards. You're going to see, the cravat or the triangle bandage, sling and swath, because that is what National Registry is taught forever. And that's what you might see on your cognitive exam and all that stuff. And you're going to learn that in EMT school. And then you're going to go in the field and you're going to see that people MacGyver things and they do things differently. And so, you might get some crusty old guy complaining about how, whatever, blah, 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 like they don't teach it, the real life and all this. And, which I'll circle back to that in a second because I take umbrage to that. But just recognize that the purpose of the class is to get you across National Registry, right? And you will hear that a lot going out, and I'm sure you've heard it. You've probably said it. I'm sure we've both said it. Like, well, you're going to go through class and they're going to teach you National Registry way. Then you're going to go out in the field and you're going to do it the real way. The longer I have been an instructor and worked in this field, the more I've realized, the way that National Registry teaches assessment, if I'm doing a good assessment, that's really kind of how I do it. Right. And there are some things that I like. The KED is still taught, Kendrick extrication device. Nobody uses it, but it's still in the scope and registry. So there is some stuff that maybe you'll learn this and it's probably not what's practiced in the field, but I don't know. I don't like the class doesn't teach you anything about being a real EMT mentality. It doesn't teach you how to cut corners. Like if you're going to be a thorough good EMT, you're going to learn that stuff in class.
Right. And kind of backtracking to the whole point is to take the National Registry. I think that should take some pressure off a little bit, and not to the sense of you don't have to try. That's very much not what I'm saying. What I mean by that is, yes, we all want 100%. We all want 100%. End of the day, though, you could almost view this as a pass-fail, right? It
is, yeah.
Did I get through? Did I pass the curriculum? Yes. Okay, let's take the national, right? Everybody wants 100%. Everyone wants to do their best. That just is human nature, especially people who tend to want to be in this field for longevity. But take some pressure off yourself. You don't have to maintain that 98% average the whole time to be successful in this field. I mean, I did, but other people.
How'd National Registry go for you first time?
Well, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. See, right. So it's not all the percentage in that, especially people when they for me, I had a college background, right? So I was used to kind of the school mentality. And then when I realized it's this is functional and for a different reason. And it wasn't until I failed the first national that it was oh, okay. This is starting to click a little bit more. And then to your point too, because it's fortunate enough, Chris was my EMT instructor and then my first FTO actually in the field. And, that was one of the first things you said to me. It was you're probably a smarter medic than I am, but I know how to do this job, so I'm going to teach you, right? And I felt very salty in that moment at you. It was okay, buddy. But he's not wrong, right? And now the majority of the knowledge was always applicable, but there was just nuance to everything, right? There's semantics and nuance to every single little thing out there that's oh, well, the book says we can do it this way, and we can. This is maybe a better way. We're still using the majority of the same information. We're just doing it a little different. Yeah. And it's oh, okay. So it's more of a changed perspective and less of the book's not important mentality.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's the book teaches you black and white, and then you get in the field and you learn the gray a little bit. So it's not that the book is wrong.
Right.
And usually in a perfect world, it's completely correct. But there is going to there is going to be a little gray area there for sure.
This is a field of gray.
Yeah, which is why a lot of us really enjoy it, because it's not black and white, same thing every day. It's not just filling out, TPS reports or whatever for your job. Like you have to figure things out, which we like.
Yeah, critical thinking skills are huge too. If you're able to think around a situation and not just, okay, this is in front of me. The book says it's going to be one of three things. It's like, well, we're not just doing medical or trauma now. It's both, right? And so now we got to start integrating and connecting dots that you may have not put together in class, but then you're going to know those dots before you get to the field, and that's where you can start integrating thoughts.
So I kind of lost my train. You were just so good at what you were saying. I kind of lost my train of thought. More expectations, kind of along what we've been saying. So another expectation I think you need to have coming into EMT school is, like I said, there's the two portions. There's the skills portion and the cognitive portion. But having a good understanding of the cognitive side lends itself to being really accomplished at the skill side. So they are kind of viewed as separate things. And so your class might have specific skills days, which we don't typically do that for our classes, but some places will have. And I think EMT school was well over 10 years ago for me. It was like 16 years ago for me. But I believe, don't laugh at me. I believe that we had at least for the last half of the class, last 6 weeks or whatever, was one classroom day and one skills day, I think. But don't let yourself get caught up in those are separate things, right? What you're learning in the classroom applies itself to what you're doing skills wise. And flip side of that too, let me backtrack a little bit. When you go to take your cognitive exam, one issue people have a lot, and they have it in the class as well, is we base our questions in our class around how the National Registry Cognitive Exam is going to ask questions. It is probably different than the college questions that you had, than high school questions, all that stuff. They have very specific ways of asking questions for the National Registry. And I think it's pretty common for just medical stuff in general to have kind of this way that they ask for their information.
That most correct answer.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's most correct. To me, a lot of it is like high school algebra, where you're reading a word problem for two little kernels that give you the answer. It's a lot kind of like that. So it's not necessarily just what is this bone, right? It's going to be where you're going to have to really dig into it to be successful with it. But having a good understanding of the skill side, not just how to do the skills, but why we do the skills and what the purpose of those skills are, can really help you be successful on the cognitive side as well. So you're going to have those two different portions of the course, but don't really view them as separate, because they do really lend themselves to each other to help you be successful on both sides of things.
Right. And most courses are designed to build on each other, or on itself anyway. So it's not just topic, move on. It's topic to continue building on the previous topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I would recommend, I kind of already touched on it, but be social. Be ready to be social, because here's the reality is you're in a class where you're going to have to be touching your classmates more than likely. You're going to be splinting each other. You're going to be doing backboarding and rolling, and you're going to have to put hands on each other. And it's just way more uncomfortable when you don't know anyone, and everyone gets that, right? No one's comfortable, but the sooner someone tries to break the ice, it's going to do you nothing but good. And then another thing to consider is that you're in an environment with a bunch of like-minded people with the same goal, which is going to be similar to when you're out in the field. We are like-minded individuals with similar goals when it comes to, especially to patient care, right? So start engrossing yourself in that environment now and start getting used to it, because, I've never had issues with being social, but you're going to be stuck on an ambulance or stuck on a fire engine with people for 24 to 48 hours. You're not going to have a choice to leave, and so being able to understand different types of people, especially the type of people that are trying to go into the same field as you, is going to set you up for success, because then when you get out into the field with these people that you may not get along with at a personal level, but how and you understand how to interact with them. And that goes a long, long way. That's one of the unspoken things I feel like through EMS. We hear it more of from the complaint side of oh, I don't like working with this guy, or I don't like working with that gal, right? Same time, you still got to figure out how to interact because you're still stuck. And I think that goes a long way. And honestly, it's good for your career longevity too, and your brain, if you can understand like, oh, I'm working with so-and-so today. We don't really get along, but I know how I'm going to approach the day, and it kind of sets you up for just a better headspace, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely, if you didn't know getting into this, that is something I didn't know. I didn't know 48-hour shifts. Right. I had no idea. Right. Like, and I think we've talked about this on a different podcast, but I had no idea getting in, especially into EMT school, that was a thing. And so that was a big wake up call. My first shift, I'm like, wait a second, I start at 8 a.m. and I get off at 8 a.m. Am I just going to be running calls nonstop? And I didn't bring bedding. I didn't bring anything. Cause I didn't know, and nobody had explained it to me. So yeah, that is a thing, out here in what we do. And then kind of touching on another point, another expectation coming into EMT school, you're going to touch people and people are going to touch you. It's just the reality of how it is. And maybe it's going to be somebody of different genders, whatever. It's what's going to happen, because you're going to practice vital signs on each other. You're going to put each other in backboards and splints, and you're going to put splints in very uncomfortable places, and all that kind of stuff. And so, just know going into the class that is a thing. You need to be comfortable with that, because you need to be comfortable with it in the field, right? You need to have somebody complaining about genital pain and be like, let me see them. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I got to look at that, right? Like that just is reality. Or, there's a gunshot wound in a uncomfortable place. You're going to have to hold pressure, those kind of things. So
people cutting things off or open.
Yes. Yeah. I've been on a couple of those. So, just be ready for that. Even starting in EMT school, you're going to have to touch people. People are going to touch you. And it's only weird if you make it weird. And it's something that if you can't do that, it's maybe not the right career for you.
Right. Yeah. And I think that actually brings up another good point of build professionalism now, because we have to talk about topics that objectively can be funny sometimes, but a lot of the time it's, we have to talk about vaginal injuries and, penile injuries. And it's really hard when you have a class, especially, not bagging on anyone, but younger kids, right? Like 17, 18, and you say penis and they're just the whole time, right? Like I get it. Don't get me wrong. I get it. But also it's one of those things of a little bit of professionalism goes a long way, and started early, and also when it comes to just touching each other, you'd rather practice now and screw up now than if someone's bleeding and screaming in your face. This is the time to make your mistakes. So, and by extension, if you're someone who's going to be putting these things on others, especially in class, expect that you're going to be a victim too sometimes, quote unquote, for the scenario or whatever, and that you're going to be touched.
Yeah.
I mean, I even took it one step further, because you even offered an EMT class. Does anyone want an MPA in their nose? And I was like, me. And he's like, I'm not doing that. And so, but then I really wanted to know, because if I'm doing this to other people, I wanted to know what it felt like. And the answer is it feels awful. I had someone put one in a medic school. I don't recommend it. 10 out of 10, do not recommend. But now I know every time I do that, I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, gotta go in your nose, and it goes a long way for, I think, just adding to your care, right? Because what's going to suck. Let's start prepping,
something else I think we can talk about, kind of different topic, but like you were saying before, like-minded people, which means that maybe down the line you're going to be sitting on a podcast next to your EMT instructor from 7 or 8 years ago.
That's weird,
right? But that's cool. And every in-person class that we have, I come and talk, and this is a talk that I give to every class, that the people in that classroom with you could be the person who you getting your dream job is dependent on in 3 years. That is well within the realm of possibility. You want to work for your local fire department, your local EMS department, and it takes you a couple of years to get that interview, and the person sitting next to you in class got it first time, and they're on your interview panel, right? That is a very realistic thing. And you're my favorite example, because you were my EMT student, and then I wrote you letters for paramedic school, and then you were FTO'd, and now you work here, with me here. And it's, and you were great in class and all that. And you're like, hey, this is a cool guy that I would be happy to work with, and I'd be happy for him to show up when I call 911, right? Like that's a big deal for us. And when you're going to EMT school, most of the time, you're not just going to interact with just your instructor. You're going to interact with lots of different instructors from a lot of different local departments. I'm sure we're not the exception here at Idaho Medical Academy, that pretty much all of our instructors work full-time in the field and do this as a second job. So, people that come to our program here meet people from all the different local fire departments, all the different EMS agencies, and all of that.
Flight crews.
Yeah, flight crews, everything. So, know going into it that your attitude can really stick with you for a long time, and that can be really good or really bad, because you're setting yourself up for success or failure, sometimes based off of how you interact with others during EMT school and the attitude that you show, because it could be that person, an instructor or another classmate on an interview panel or something, or they could put in a good word for you somewhere, those kind of things. So just know that this is a very small field, and you are really entering that field, and we love to chat with each other, and we live together sometimes, right? Like on shift. And so
to run out of things to talk about at a certain point.
yeah. Or you just hear like, oh, hey, that guy, you were his instructor, right? Like, yeah, she was great. She, was always early to class, asked really good questions, was interested. Like, yeah, I would love for her to come work here. Let me go call admin and be like, hey, this person was one of my students. They crushed it. Like they're going to be great. Or one of my favorite examples of this, we have Cody, who, if you watch the channel, Cody. Cody works for a local fire department, and Cody is known that if you come in and you start asking him about the fire questions, and he's like, hey, this guy's a cool guy, he will get your phone number and he will call you. Sabrina's back there nodding because she knows from like a personal relationship that she has of Cody will be like, hey, I want you to come work with me. I love my job. I think you'd be great at it. Let me work with you on interview prep. Let me work with you on all these things so I can get you there, right? That's not uncommon in this field. Most of us are where we're at because we like to mentor people and we want to improve our communities. And so that's something that you might see. So, have a good showing when you show up.
Yeah. And EMS is tight knit. That was something you said one of the first days of EMT class too. It's a small community. So if you screw up now, people are going to know. And I was like, wow, I mean, there's like how many agencies, which I didn't know there was not that many, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy how you just know people through grapevines and word spreads, and we're all talkers, we all like to tell our stories. So yeah. And especially if you're going to be in a program that's going to be bringing in outside folks, like Chris kind of said, start that interview mentality now, because these people very much could make, I don't want to say break, but they could make or break some of your career prospects. If you are, poop in the punch bowl, they may not let you, they're going to fight. All of us are passionate about what we do. And if they know that you're going to be a turd, they don't want you, and so just prep yourself, right? Have the right attitude, have the right mentality. I'm not saying we're perfect by any means, and we're all going to, mess up from time to time, but it still is one of those things of you can try your best to make the right steps. And that goes so much further than you will expect in the time. Like I didn't think, what's 8 years ago at this point that I'd be sitting next to Chris here. But obviously, if you take care of things the right way, things tend to fall into your favor. I just follow you around. Where are we going next? Somewhere fun, I hope.
Yeah, hopefully somewhere cool.
Yeah, sick.
We've kind of been talking a lot, and it's been interspersed. But in my mind, we were going to delineate like expectations of EMT school, and then like how to be successful. We've kind of woven in between. But let's lean more because I made notes.
Yeah.
So
those are
we
good
can talk
too.
about my notes about ways to be successful for EMT school. So. And these are not in any particular order. Just we had talked about this, and I was like, start jotting stuff down. So one thing I always recommend for students is to get a test prep program, and don't wait until you're done with the class before you start using your National Registry test prep. If you watch the episode that we did a while ago with Dr. Mo, who's way smarter than either of us combined, and obviously very accomplished. He's critical care paramedic and a doctor and just a stellar dude.
Yeah, just a stand-up fella.
Yeah, just one of those guys. in his research and education, what he has found is that they have found taking test questions is the best study prep that you can do. Test prep with study questions is number one, and then flashcards was number two, according to him, who I trust Mo pretty implicitly. So I'm sure that his knowledge on that front is good. So
yeah. He also mentioned, when you're in class, like-minded people, quiz each other. Try to stump each other. Don't trick them, but try to stump each other. And because nothing will make you forget, or not, rather rephrase, nothing will make you remember like having somebody tell you you're stupid to your face. That's how my wife caught me. She called me stupid a lot of times to my face, and it was like, wow, I like this, I guess. But I learned a lot because we were constantly in the same, you're just living and breathing the same thought process. And these are folks that want to be successful just like you. Ask them, quiz each other. Because obviously go through your prep. That's going to be way more important for like the cognitive side, especially NRMT, but it goes a long way for building relationship and retaining information by quizzing your classmates.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you can do it with your classmates, you can do it with a test prep, but start that. And I'm sure I've said it on here before, but when I was in paramedic school, I commuted about an hour and a half each way. And so I drive about 30 minutes by myself and meet up with two other students, and we would drive the rest of the way together. And we were friends. It was cool, but most of that driving on the way up was us quizzing each other about the subject from the day before. And then on the way down was, what did we learn today, and quizzing each other about that and trying to like build that knowledge. And I learned so much on those car rides that I really retained. And most of it was us trying to make each other feel really stupid, right? It was just to show everybody how much smarter we were than they were, but it worked out really well, right? Like the competitive nature, and people in this field are generally competitive people. It's just kind of a type A personality type of field. We kind of leaned into it, and we use that as our time to really, that was just how we studied with each other. And it was really successful. I felt like I learned so much in that time. So yeah, I totally agree with you. That's definitely a good thing. Use each other. And then test preps are also a really great tool. Cause like I was saying earlier, the National Registry is very specific about its testing, and the test preps, are, I don't know where they get the questions from. We don't do any of that. From what I've heard, they are former National Registry test questions that have been pulled out of the test bank that somehow those companies get access to. I don't know the validity of that, if that's true or anything. But they are very, very similar. So there's lots of test preps out there. Pretty much all of the paid ones that offer like pass first time or money back are going to be really good. So get a test prep, get it early, use it early. And it's going to really help you be successful in the class. Yeah.
And I'd recommend too, when you're looking for a test prep, back in April, NRMT added questions types to their exam that weren't there for years prior. Try to do the research to get into one that has those updated questions. Just that way it doesn't feel like you're taking, something from left field all of a sudden. If you have a multiple select answer instead of just true multiple choice, that can throw you off, especially when you realize that if you get any of the multiple select wrong, the whole question's wrong, So give yourself some exposure, give yourself some experience early, so that way it just doesn't feel like you're getting caught off guard.
Yeah. Yeah, they're called TEIs. That is the terminology that National Registry uses. So if you're looking at test preps, and it's talking about a TEI, that is, I don't know what that stands for.
It's technology, something.
Yeah.
Remember, technology was the first one that weirded me out.
But that's their terminology for the different question types. So it's not just for answer multiple choice anymore. There's multiple select, there's drag and drop, there's all sorts of different things. And so look for a test prep that is going to mimic the National Registry when you're getting a test prep for sure. Which I'd imagine most of the online ones are pretty up to date, hopefully.
Yeah. And one thing I did that I feel like helped when I was actually successful on my basic NRMT the second time was I actually I got an app that I forced myself to do a daily mini quiz. And just every single day I wanted something in front of me that I had to think through. And it doesn't have to be long sessions. Repeated exposures for half an hour every day goes a long, long way.
Yeah. Our boss, Justin, who's been doing this for a very long time, and started the school and everything. Like he recommends even like you're standing in the line at the grocery store, like pull it out real quick, pull your app out real quick, do 10 questions just while you're there, do 10 questions and then go about your day, right? You're waiting in the school pickup line for your kids, pop up 10 questions, right? Whatever it is. If you have 5 minutes to do those 10 questions and you can do that 10 times throughout the day, you know, you've just seen 100 questions that you wouldn't otherwise.
Right.
It doesn't need to be some long comprehensive thing, and it shouldn't be. You should do those test preps will have like comprehensive exams. I really recommend you do a couple of those going into it to kind of, you know, get your mind around it. But, you know, go in, do those little chunks here and there, and it's going to help you be successful, right? Marathon runners don't just go run a marathon 3 times a week.
No.
They're going to go do 5-mile runs, and they're going to do shorter runs, and they're going to build up to it. And that's exactly what a test prep is doing, right? It's building your brain to be ready for that. And you need the cognitive, endurance essentially to take those long ones, and it's going to help you build up to that so you can be successful taking a 70 to 120 question exam.
Yeah, 100%. I used to do it before bed, which was the wrong time to do that. Hindsight, I would do it in the mornings, but yeah, don't. I recommend not doing it right before bed, because then you're going to be laying down like, why did I get that stupid question wrong? And then it's 3 a.m. and you've been pondering, you know. So life lessons, learn from my mistakes.
That's fair. So next one I have is to try not just to learn the when and the how, but learn the why. And I think when you're going through this school, it's so fast paced sometimes that all you can really feel like you can learn is the when and how. Like, why am I doing this procedure and when do I do it? And you're not exactly learning the why, right? Like you're learning when to put on a pelvic binder and how to do it, but you're not understanding what an open book pelvic fracture is and the risks associated. So to really be successful, take the time to learn the why. You know, as you're learning all these different things, why are we doing this? Why does this happen? Is really going to help you to have that deeper understanding.
Yeah. I was once told by a medic that even a monkey could do this job if all they do is treat symptoms. And we want to be better than that, right? Like we want to know the when and the how, right? But if you understand the why, you end up doing better job prepping for the hospital later down the road, you know? So spend the time, learn the nuancy thing, nerd out on a topic. That's A-okay. A lot of us have our topic of choice that we're like, oh, I really like this one, you know, and learn as much about it as you possibly can. Is it realistically going to change much in your treatment? Probably not, but there's nothing wrong with having too much information if you're using it, accurately.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there was some solace to me when I started as a medic to be like, I have my protocols and this is all I can do. So to start off, I'm going to be really good at that. Yeah. And then as you progress, like, then I started to be like, okay, I'm going to go beyond this and really, expand my scope to know, or not expand my scope, know beyond my scope. So there is something to be said at first, just know, the basics of it. But the EMT level compared to the paramedic level, I feel like your scope is so small that you really have the time, and you really should be putting in the effort to learn beyond just your scope.
Yeah. And I caution anybody who has access to like their local system protocols, because some of them are just public apps you can just get your hands on. I think they're great. It's great resources to have. I would really caution you though with utilizing them too much, because realistically, yes, a lot of it will apply, but it's not done to the same NREMT standard. Remember, you got to jump through the hoops before you find the gray, right? And so just be careful if you're going to use that as a major study point. Just it might actually end up hurting you. Yeah,
especially at higher levels with drug dosages and all that stuff.
It's all specified by medical direction.
Yeah, EMT is usually more straightforward with all that stuff for the EMT level, but the higher levels, it's so broad. It can change so much depending on the medical director.
And then some systems will let EMTs do things that NREMT doesn't necessarily allow at this time. Yeah. Right. So you can confuse yourself.
Yeah, you can have expanded scopes for sure.
I like this one. Feel free to fail. I think that's a big point. Fail here. You are going to fail in school. And trust me when I say you'd rather look stupid in your EMT class than look stupid in medic school or look stupid in, out in the field. I have a specific example of me and another buddy who is now works for a local fire agency in medic school. And we got asked, scenario stabbing. And so I was like, stabilize the knife. And I'm like, oh, I don't remember that. So I was like, hey man, stabilize that knife. And he gives me the like, it's like, okay, we are about to look so stupid. And then, of course, immediately after, the proctor, someone we know fairly well, really gave us a hard time about that. So yeah, make mistakes early and fail them in school so that you know how to do it the right way. That's such a huge relief off of you too, especially when you're in the field and you feel like, oh, I really screwed this up. I'm not going to do that, or I screwed this up in school. I'm not going to do that now.
Yeah. Yeah, and realize that everybody else in your class would probably fail the same way that you would in that situation if they haven't seen it. And I guarantee you that proctor has failed as well. As they're, it's really easy for us as the instructors and the proctors to sit with our clipboards and be like, oh, you suck, right? Like,
actually,
yeah. But we have been on that side of things, if you're not willing to go and kind of be like, I learned this thing today, I'm going to try to apply that and kind of go beyond just like the real basic stuff. You're never going to like really expand, right? You're never going to be successful, but you need to, and especially in school, you need to like we have here, feel free to fail and go and like, I learned this thing. I'm going to see if it applies here, and maybe you're going to be wrong and whatever. And your proctor be like, no, that's not right. Let me explain why. And your knowledge level is going to shoot up so much from that. Yeah. But if you're scared to, step outside, then you're not going to really expand. Right. So, and this is just life in general, but for sure school too. Like go into it knowing that, you're going to fail and that is okay. Just what do you do after that failure, right? That's really the big takeaway there.
I want to add to that too. Feel free to fail and don't be scared to try. I feel like I'm talking a lot about my EMT school experience, but there was one day in particular I really remember. We were practicing assessments for the first time, and you had the mannequin sitting in a chair, and we're all circled up, and you're like, "Who wants to go?" And so everyone's doing that, like, I don't. It's not talking to me. And then you called me out. It's like, dang it. So I go up there, and it was a cardiac assessment, and I actually did fairly well based on what you told me. I don't remember exactly how it went, but it went fairly smoothly. And I remember that being such a confidence booster too, of like, had I just raised my hand and just took a crack at it, if I fail, I fail. Who cares? Like, it's not like they're going to do, maybe someone will do better, but it's like at that point, I can't do much worse, And so these are people who also are going to learn from the same thing. So don't be scared to put yourself out there and really take an attempt at something. Because if you're wrong, you're giving someone else the same answer that they've been questioning or wrong about themselves.
Yeah, for sure. So next thing I have is ask questions when you don't understand something. And this seems like it should be so simple, but the amount of times that we as instructors will be talking about a subject or lecturing or whatever and be like, okay, anybody have any questions? And it's stuff that we know tends to be stuff that people don't grasp really well. And like everybody gets that. Everybody understands and everyone's like, sure. Yeah. And then we see, down the line, we ask a different question. They can't answer. You know what I mean? Like it's very common. So, and this applies online schools. You should have some sort of resource. I know for our online program, you can contact one of us, or your instructor and ask questions. But ask questions if you don't understand something, because the way all this stuff works is, it's like we're building a building, and if the ground floor is not stable, then it's going to topple. And so if you're not understanding the foundational stuff that you're being taught here, as you try to move on, you're really going to struggle. Yeah. So ask those questions. And this kind of goes in line with being, feeling free to fail. I love when a student asks me a question, or I ask a question and they give me the wrong answer. Like, cool, man. Like you're trying to expand your knowledge, and that's noble. And that's what you should be doing when you're here.
Let's talk about it. Yeah. And there are no dumb questions. There are questions that are less relevant, I will say, but not dumb. But just remember, every question you ask, somebody else probably has it. They're just not brave enough to ask it. Be the person who's not scared to ask a question, because you're going to be doing more favors than just for yourself. You're going to be helping your cohort out. And that goes so much further, as we've already talked about, that they could be helping you out later down the road,
Yeah. And maybe they don't know the answer. Like, maybe they have the same question, or maybe they're not even to the level they can think of that question. And you're going to help elevate everybody else with that question. Right. So ask lots of questions. The way our boss always describes our job is that you're a coach. Like, we are there to be a coach, right? And it's the same thing. Nobody can, get out there and shoot free throws for you. You need to go shoot those free throws yourself, but a coach can come in and tweak things and answer questions and add on top of that. We're not going to we can't teach you anatomy, right? Like we can't do that. We're not going to do that, but we can teach you how that anatomy applies to the cardiovascular system and the emergencies that we would have in that, right? Like that's what we're here for. We're here to coach and put those pieces together. But you need to go get those pieces yourself, and you need to ask questions on how they fit together when you're not understanding it.
100%. 100%.
Next thing we had is find out how you learn best and learn that way. And if you can make this fun, that's super helpful. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably already doing that in some regard, but
Auditory.
and I feel like this is a lot better for younger people. Where, older people, I feel like you go to school, you have a textbook, you read the textbook, and then you answer the questions, and that is school. And I always tell every class, like, if you read the textbook for an hour and you get 5 minutes of information, you wasted 55 minutes of your time. That maybe you could have done the audiobook, or maybe you could have done a hands-on exercise with something. Instead of reading over and over about anatomy, print out the body and start to label it and, like figure out what it is that really works for you, and then lean into that and really use your time wisely when you're going through the course.
Yeah. And a trend I've noticed with our students too is that most of us are hands-on learners in this field. We all like to get our hands on stuff. The harsh reality is that this class in this field, well, I'll stick it to class. This class is less hands-on than you're really going to want it to be, because end of the day, you just have to know some stuff. It's hard to get hands-on with diabetes. Let's be transparent. So expect that you're going to have, if you're a hands-on learner, expect you'll have avenues where you can really shine there. Also expect that you are going to need to do some work to figure out how you're best going to retain this information, because it's a lot, 1,600 or so pages, 41 chapters, right? It's a lot of stuff that can't get hands-on with. You just got to figure out what is the best method for me to get this information into my brain so I don't forget it. And it's tough. It's not an easy thing. We're just saying it like it's an easy find. It's not easy, but spend the time, because it will do you nothing but favors later.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's online tools you can use to help you kind of figure out that, you can do surveys and stuff that will maybe help you figure out like how you like to learn and how your brain works that way. So if you're not sure, then, go look into that and again, feel free to fail, right? Try something and be like, hey, that didn't work for me at all. I just wasted a couple hours, but you tried something new. Right. And then eventually you're going to find the thing that really sticks. Like I didn't read any books during paramedic school. We had everything digitally. We had them all on iPads, and I hate Apple products. I don't understand them. So that didn't help. But I had no desire to do any of that, but I spent so much time doing flashcards or doing, podcasts. It was podcasts. At least I didn't find any around that time. So not that kind of thing, but like lots of YouTube videos, reading studies about different things. And like, I wasn't in the textbooks. I wasn't really reading my textbooks really, but I was finding that information elsewhere in a manner that was easier for me to digest and learn from. And I was successful with it. So, lean into your thing.
One more thing for the hands-on folks, because I just feel like that's such a demographic we see here, especially wannabe firefighters, but flashcards, it's a really big one. It's something to keep your hands on and keep your hands moving. And also it's really good for retaining information, because when you're handwriting, and I really recommend handwriting, it makes you slow down. It makes you really digest what you're writing, right? If you're going to spell sphygmomanometer, you're going to remember how to spell that, but you're going to burn that word into your head because you're like, I had to look at it 9 times just to write it once, right? So that would be my recommendation, at least as a starting point.
Yeah. And I've said it, I'm sure 100 times before, but whiteboards are my favorite study tool because you're going to have to remember that nitroglycerin is a vasodilator, and write out vasodilator and write out mechanism, whatever, write out dosage, 0.4 milligrams sublingually, right? Like write those over and over and over. Whiteboards are just, and flashcards are amazing too. But I personally, I like whiteboards, start to learn it, and then My wife, when I was in medic school, could have passed for sure all the pharm exams from the amount of times that she had flashcards in her hand and was quizzing me after I would do my whiteboard for 30 minutes, whatever. And that I found that to be really, really helpful. So flashcards are amazing. I like whiteboards just so you're not wasting paper or anything, but you can write stuff out. And that's proven to be a huge thing for people to write it out over and over and over. Really helps with retention.
I mean, I used a whiteboard for medic school too. Same thing. And it's just reps, just over and over and over. It's just, if you're a sports, an athlete person, you do the same skill over and over and over and over until it's secondhand. It's the same kind of mantra.
Yeah, man. Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani still hit off a tee every single day, right? Like the best hitters in the world still hit off tee. And I'm sure the best soccer players still take PKs and, 100 in practice. But Michael Jordan showed up before everybody else and shot free throws, right? It's just that reps is what makes you really successful.
100%. So, if
don't
you can
think
do
you're
it in
above
weird
it.
circumstances too, then you can do it in ideal circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. This one's kind of quick, but learn your medical and trauma assessment sheets early. Because a lot of the questions you're going to get, and this is what I was talking about, the cognitive and the psychomotor kind of intertwining. A lot of the questions you're going to get test questions wise are going to be scenario based, and they are going to be order of operations questions based around the medical trauma sheets. So if you start learning those things early, whatever your program uses is probably very similar to the National Registry sheets. We use ones that are, I think they're better than the registry sheets, but I based them off of the registry sheet and just added and took away as I thought was important. But using those is going to help you have a really systematic approach to your test questions. And it's really going to help you to understand the order of operations, and it's going to help you be very successful. Well, I shouldn't say that. It can help you to be more successful for your test questions
Set
than
you up for success.
If you didn't otherwise.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you got?
I want to skip one. I want to go. Don't forget why you're there. That's a great one, right? For me, when I was in EMT school, it was med school. Hindsight 2020, right? But don't forget why you're there. If you've got a goal and you really want to be this, if you want this, put the effort in. If you're going to be in an in-person, I'm going to kind of blend some things. If you're going to be in an in-person class, show up, be there every day, be attentive, be early. Now, don't be stupid early, right? Like an hour, but like 10, 15 minutes, that's fine, but the more you show up and the more you show the effort and remember why you want this in the first place, it's only going to fuel that fire. It's just the best way to go, you know? And a lot of people I've seen, they're like, I want to be a firefighter so bad. But then when they get halfway through the course, they're like, this is a lot of work. I don't really want to do this anymore. Right? Like, hold on to that fire, because end of the day, it's all you kind of got when you're in the trenches of school.
Yeah. And I say this to classes, again, my first day class for everybody, right? Like, this is not a class that you're taking to fulfill, your requirements for your degree, right? This is a job. This is a class you're taking to help you achieve your dream job. And so you should want to be there every day, or you should want to be logging in every night to your online program to learn this information, because this is the job that you are trying to go get. And when the class starts to get hard, when you start to struggle, keep your goal in mind, like you were saying, right? Like, I want to be a firefighter. I want to serve my community. And this is how I'm best going to do that. And so I'm going to be excited to learn this information, because you need to know this to go and save lives, right? You need to know this to go do the job that you want to do. And so your attitude should reflect that when you go to class. Go to every class. You should not want to miss class. If you want to miss classes, what are you doing? Like, why are you in the class in the first place, right? If this is just a checkbox for you, then I don't want to work with you. Maybe a little harsh, but that's just the reality of it, right? Like, if you don't want to know this information, then why do you want to go have other people's lives in your hands, right? Like, if that's not you, then what are you here for? Shut the podcast off, whatever. Go do a different job that you're going to be passionate about, right?
Right.
Because you're going to have to sacrifice a lot for this. So if you're not passionate about it, then don't be here. But if all that is like, no, this is what I want to do, then remember that. And really put in your time and your effort when you're doing this class.
Yeah. And got to remember, this is an incredibly, incredibly competitive field, right? So complacency early is not going to do you any favors either. You know, you're going to be competing for, the one job with 2,000 other people potentially. You got to be your best, right? And no one brings their best when they're complacent.
Yeah. We're getting short on time, so try to move a little faster.
Yeah.
One big thing, general tip is to be curious. And this should really go for the rest of your career. If you get into this, you should always why are those signs and symptoms, what they are, whatever. But in the context of for EMT school, for me, one thing I always try to, to impress upon students is it's not that big of a deal what we do, and that it's not that different than everyday life, right? Wait, what kind of car do you drive?
I drive a Ram 1500.
What year is it?
2018.
Okay. What color is it?
It's gray.
Cool. When'd you buy it?
2020.
Right on. What engine does it have in it?
V8.
Okay. Do you know about horsepower numbers?
No.
Cool.
Top of my head, no.
So now if Wade had told me instead he has chest pain, and I'm just curious about his chest pain, right? You have chest pain? When did it start?
Hurts.
Okay.
Yesterday.
Okay. What does it feel like?
Pressure.
Okay. Scale of 1 to 10, how bad is that pressure?
It's an 11, brother.
Right. How is that? How is that any different than me being curious about his new car, right? Or whatever subject is going on. All we're doing is having a conversation. I'm just trying to get more information about it, right? And so if you're just curious through all this stuff, it's really going to help you be successful. I think as an EMT, as a paramedic, whatever. And when when I was able to break that down, I know this assessment's a skill sheet I have to go through with all these different points. If I just ask questions about what they're telling me because I want to know more information, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get to where I need to be. Yeah. So that's one thing I really try to impress. And this was more, especially as an FTO working in the field with especially younger medics, new young medics that don't have the life experience. Dude, just ask questions, right? If you're curious about what's going on, you're going to do pretty well. So definitely something I think to be successful in school and in this, just be curious about everything. Why did this book talk about this? Hey, instructor, how does this apply to these things, right? Be curious about all of it. Be curious during your skill stuff. And it's really going to help you be successful.
Yeah. I feel like I just got Miyagi'd right there. Where are you going? Oh, I see. That was good. But on that note, up and down. Anyway, I had an FTO once tell me, if you're not asking questions the whole time, you're not doing a good enough job. Even if you've asked it before, sometimes asking a repeat question to think of your next question. If you already know the answer, once again, I've said this before, listen to what they're saying. But yeah, if you're not asking enough questions or you're not asking questions, you're not getting information, you're not doing your job thoroughly. So yeah, start asking questions early. Get in the habit. I'm a question asker. Always have been, always will be.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. You're also going to be called annoying by a lot of friends, but don't take it personally.
Yeah. And that might not be a personality, right? Personally, I'm very quiet. I was very shy, right? That's just how I've always been. But that has to go that has to go out the window when my work persona is very different than my personal life persona, right? And that might take work for you to be really good at asking questions. You may be really introverted and quiet, and that might be kind of hard for you. So EMT school, again, is when to fail, when to really start to learn those things and start to be I'm just going to ask every question I can think of, right? And maybe you're going to be called annoying by your friends, or maybe you're going to ask a bunch of irrelevant questions, but you need to learn to flex those muscles and start to learn to ask a question, think about the response that will lead you to another question, and kind of work your way down the line there.
Yeah, 100%.
I have a couple. Sorry, you're gonna.
I was actually going to jump because we kind of talked about our in-person stuff already, but with the online stuff, if you're on an online class, create a schedule and be tight to that schedule. It's gonna go. It's gonna help you out, right? And everyone knows, especially online class. I got homework to do. It's gonna be 2 hours. I don't want to commit the time, but I know if I don't do it, I'm just making a problem for future me. To create the schedule and stick to it. Stick to the plan. Can you grind for a few months to get where you want to be, to live a successful and better life potentially, right? Yeah. The effort seems worth it in my mind, but it helps.
Yeah. Even if you're in an online class, right? If you were in an in-person class, traditional class, you'd have 8 hours a week in class time, right? And then you'd probably put 4 hours a week into studying, whatever it is. Yeah. Have the same thing on you, do it on your calendar, whatever, of Mondays after dinner for 2 hours, I'm going to study for my class. I'm going to do class time, and around my work schedule, this is what it's going to be. If you schedule out that time, it's going to really help you not to fall behind. Because if it's very easy in an online class, especially like a self-paced online class, to just be like, oh yeah, I'll get to it later, whatever. Oh no, this person wants to go. They want to go ride dirt bikes today. Oh, cool. Well, I can study tomorrow. You know what I mean? And but you need to be, you need to be structured with it, and you need to stick to that structure to help you really be successful. And again, remember your end goal, right? Like when people want to go hang out, or you got whatever issues, or the new season of Stranger Things drops, whatever it is, right? Like your goal is to go get your dream job. So just suffer through it if you feel like you're suffering through it for a little bit.
And your friendships, I hate to say it, your friendships with your outside of this field friends is going to struggle a little bit, because you just don't get to see them to that same degree. If they're really your friends, they're still going to be there when you're done, right? And they should understand that you are working to better yourself. So if that's a big concern of like, oh, I don't get to see my friends anymore, it's a few months, lock down. If they're your friend, they'll still be there, and they'll be rooting for you the whole way.
Yeah, for sure. The next point I have here, I think maybe is a little more specific to our program. I can't speak for every program, but I know for IMA's online program, there's a lot of resources in there. I created, the advanced program, I created all of that stuff. Justin did most of the stuff for the basic, and we've kind of been adding on as time goes. But like, we don't do that just because we think it's fun, right? Like, we had those resources are there. I do actually think it's fun, but
it's riveting. The
resources are there to help students be successful. If you think you're going to sign up for like an online class and just click through all the resources, you're going to fail. It's not going to be good. We put those things in there to help you be successful. So utilize your resources if you're an online student, right? Our program has flashcards, digital flashcards you can use. We have podcasts linked in there. We have lecture videos. We have audiobooks. We have chapter outlines. We have all this sort of stuff that you can utilize. And I know that there's a lot of students who just click through to get to the quiz at the end that they have to do so they can finish that chapter and checkbox it. So same thing as we said before, right? It's not just checkboxes. Utilize those resources to the best of your ability so you can learn it. But online classes, at least our online class, is pretty robust in what it has. So, spend your time, spend your effort, utilize those resources, and it's really going to help you to be successful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I've got nothing to add to that. That's beautifully said.
Thank you. Yeah. Real wordsmith. And then the last one I had here for the online specific stuff is that, like I was talking about with my wife earlier, right? Even if it's your friends, your family don't work in this field and don't know anything, that doesn't mean they can't help you with this, right? You can stick flashcards in their hands and be like, quiz me on these things, or you can, again, our program has Wade built out a lot of medical trauma scenarios that are meant to give to somebody who doesn't know anything about this stuff, and they can read the prompt essentially to help you with medical trauma scenarios, or they can be skills dummies for you to practice vital signs on, all that kind of stuff.
Find pulses.
All of that. So again, utilize your resources. Your friends and family, even if they're not in the medical field, can be really, really helpful there to help you study with those things. So,
and you'd be surprised how many of your friends that are not medically geared are actually interested in what you're doing too. And they'll be like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Unless it's needles. People tend to say no to needles pretty often, but probably a good thing.
Flip side to all that, I would caution, if you have a family member or friend who does work in the medical field, especially has been an EMT for 20 years, knowledge changes. And so if they're saying something and the book is saying something, the book's right? Like, keep that in mind. They might want to really help you, and they're doing it with the best hearted intentions, but they may have outdated knowledge. They may be not good at keeping on CEs and all that stuff and keeping updated. So just be cognizant and aware of that can be a thing. And
your text is going to be the closest to the NRMT that's guiding you there anyway. So it may just be a fact check moment, right? Yeah. Don't call them out on it necessarily, but fact check if there's something is like, that doesn't feel right. Find out for yourself. Make sure.
Yeah, for sure. Circle, just to re-hit the points real quick that we had for in-person. Like you had said earlier, make friends with your classmates, create a study group. We both talked about why that is. So that's really helpful. Go to all your classes. It should be simple, but you'd be surprised at how many people don't go. And I'm sure that there's probably a pretty distinct correlation between students who go to all their classes and who get jobs down the line. I would imagine that we could draw that data and probably probably go hand in hand pretty well.
Got math homework to do now.
And then we kind of touched on this one for in-person class. Learn the material at least at like a surface level before you go to the class. You can't utilize our knowledge as well if you don't have that baseline knowledge. So, if you're in our program, do the online lecture, read through the book. Even if you don't read the book thoroughly, like look at the headers, read the bold stuff, like have that basic understanding before you come to class. And then you can start to go deeper if you have that basic understanding, right? So you use your coaches when you show up to class, but that's required for you to take some time before you get there. So you're showing up to class on Tuesday morning that's about shock should not be the first time you have heard about shock or learned about shock. You should take some time before you get there.
Yep. Agreed.
Cool. I think that's all we have here. And remember when we started and you're like, I think it will be like 30 minutes.
That doesn't sound like me.
And I was like 45 minutes to an hour. And I think we're over an hour now. Right. Yeah. We've got a lot to say, I guess.
Foot in mouth.
Well, also, paramedics, EMT, we like to talk. That's what we do. It's hard to shut us up sometimes.
Your fault. You're making me hear my own voice. And I kind of like it. So
not surprised. But yeah, cool. Hopefully if you are a student or prospective student, this gave you some information to go off of. As we've talked about a lot of times, if this is something that you aren't a student yet and you're interested in becoming an EMT student, Idaho Medical Academy has traditional in-person classes out of Boise. We also have a self-paced online EMT program that has 4 days in person after you finish your online stuff. So that's an option. And we also have an online advanced program that's a similar thing where you come into Boise for a week to do your skills portion. So we do have those for Idaho Medical Academy if you're interested in becoming an EMT or whatever. Or, if you have questions about the process or something, feel free to call our office and, you might talk to one of us even if you're interested in it. So, we love to help people. I'm totally happy to answer questions from students and from people that aren't students and just want some information about this stuff. So,
and I want to double down. The online class is available everywhere, wherever you are. You just will have to travel for 1 week. So if you're in Florida and you want to make that work, we can make it work for you.
Yeah, for sure. So, we do have those. Plug those real quick since we're on the subject. Otherwise, like I said, hope it's helpful for you. Any closing thoughts, Weidrich?
Study up, work hard, and don't take it for granted. You'll enjoy it. It's the best, worst years of your life.
The most fun thing you never want to do again, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Just have fun with it, and like we talked about, keep your goal in mind, and you'll get through it. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, hope that was helpful. Thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Whatever you're doing, hit subscribe. Hit like. The channel is doing really well, and I think we're reaching a lot of people and helping a lot of people, and that's what we want to do, right? We want to make not just our students, we want to make everyone successful. So, it really helps if you can hit like, subscribe, all that stuff, and we will see you guys next time.